Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today, I have the privilege of being in conversation with the co-creator and star of the critically acclaimed HBOMax series Southside. Please welcome Sultan Salahuddin.
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Welcome to the experience.
I like that's how we start off. So before we get too deep into it, I want to start off with very general question. Let's talk about growing up in Chicago. Let's talk about that a little bit. So tell us those kind of like those points and those really interesting things that kind of made growing up for you like memorable and all.
That's a very good question. Well, first of all, I just like throw out there that I had some really strong and good parents, and that's one of the reasons that I am who I am today. They took a big interest in my success early on, and were providers and guiders and disciplinarians, and exposed me to a lot of things growing up. So from that perspective, I feel fortunate. As it relates to growing up in Chicago, I mean, it's a big city. Yeah. It was wild. There were gangs. There were things a normal person wouldn't see just around the neighborhood. So every time I would go outside, I would gain a little bit more. A little bit more street intelligence. Yeah. And then there was basketball was really big in my neighborhood as a kid. So we started out playing basketball and baseball actually. So we would play wall ball, which is basically you draw a square on a wall in the alley. And somebody would pitch, and any ball that goes inside that square is a strike, and anyone outside is a ball. And you play, and until the sun went down. We also played a lot of crate basketball, where you cut the bottom out of a milk crate and tack it up to the or rim, depending on what was available, a rim to an old bike, and tack it up on a light pole or electricity pole, if you will. The old redwood. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Then we would shoot that for hours as we got older. People started dunking. Then we went to the big courts. So there was a lot of candy shops, and today you really don't have those as much. It's because a lot of kids get kidnapped and all that stuff. But when I was a kid, it was candy. It was 3 around my house. I remember on one block, because this block called Kerfoot, it was 3 candy stores on that one block. So that was really good. And I have a lot of family in Chicago, so I always had a support system as it relates to like cousins, aunties, uncles. I come from a very large family. And and outside of that, summer times were always the greatest. Winter times always sucked, just to be all the way honest about it. Chicago winters are not the best, but you just makes you appreciate the summer that much more. And the people is what really gave me, and what a lot of people don't know about people in Chicago is like people in Chicago are very, very comfortable getting in your conversation, talking to strangers, telling you about yourself, asking you questions. If they hear you talking, having a conversation, somebody can chime in. So growing up, like that became the norm. And so you meet a lot of people like that. You get a lot of wisdom like that. And you get your skills as far as like, for lack of a better term, talking shit, being funny, staying on your P's and Q's. Yeah. Because sometimes you get into verbal battles with people in there, and a lot of strangers are really good. They'll dress you down from the top to the bottom based on what you're wearing, how you look, how you talk, and they got some really hot jokes. So you just got to make sure that you're respectful. And the biggest thing is mind your business. I mean, I know it's contrary to what I just said, but it's different when you're being friendly and talking to somebody. But if you see a couple people fighting or getting it on, you just kind of keep walking. Mind your business. That's the best way to stay safe in those situations. So, like any big city, like,
that's great.
Survive. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I think of in doing some of the research and that those sort of comparisons. I see the Baltimore, because that's where I'm based in, the Baltimore and Chicago thing. And, I remember, because I've only been to Chicago maybe once or twice, and I went there for wrestling. I went there to watch some
like
AEW.
WWE, or you were part of a wrestling team and you guys were in a tournament?
For like WWE, it was AEW. And it was really cool or what have you. I was trying to get as much culture exposure and all of that stuff in a short period of time, but it's on my list to go back to do like these sorts of interviews there. And I just remember it being used as almost like a fill-in kind of place, of, hey, we want to say something politicized and we want to talk about Black people, but we can't do it. So let's make it a city. And that's what Baltimore was running into as well. I think let's talk about all of the negative things, but not all these really cool cultural things that make up a place. And I think that's what's baked into the conversations I try to have and what I've seen in doing the research for Southside. It's just like so many people from Chicago there, you and your brother having, and so I want to start off. I want to ask.
Freezing up.
No, we're still here. I want to ask that second question.
Okay, cool.
What is your experience writing for television before Southside?
Limited. Most of the time I did writing for stand-up comedy. I was a stand-up comedian for several years and before doing Southside. And that's where I honed my skill on how to write jokes and how to put together a bit and all that other good stuff. Turn that into a set, so on and so forth. But in addition to that, I did some creative writing. I wrote in college a few times, creative writing classes, storytelling classes. I actually took some classes on creative writing because I think it's important. But I did all of that not knowing that I was going to be writing for television. I just did that because I was interested and my mom's made me. So, the reality behind it is I had that experience in my back pocket. And when it came time for writing for television, it was just more so learning the format and learning the structure of writing TV, which is not taught in anybody's school or anywhere. You either have an opportunity, you can go, now there are tons of books out there that you can look up and learn, but it's nothing like actually being in the experience. So this being season 3 in the writing room, I have definitely gotten a different set of chops than I have from season 1. Season 1, I was definitely it was just overwhelming in a sense that there was a lot of information that I had to learn on my own as well as keep up. But I totally believed in myself. But the other thing is I went home and did homework, just maybe like the first 2 weeks, just to make sure that I was on the right page and that I understood things. And then as time progressed, I was able to pick apart stories and really understand all the elements that needed to be in the story and how to actually make it a good story, et cetera, et cetera. So all those things that I learned before kind of came back and helped. But when you're actually in the mix, when the pressure's on and the clock is running and money's being spent, you want to definitely make sure that you're up to snuff. So, and you got to really care, it's not, for me, it was never a job. I didn't look at it like, I'm going to go make some money writing right now. It was like, I'm writing on one of my favorite things to ever write on, which is Southside, the show. And I can't believe this is happening. So I don't know if you've ever had that experience. It's like almost like living the dream. But when you're writing or when you're working doing something that you didn't expect to happen per se, but you always kind of had that like this is gonna work. It just overwhelms you, and like you are eager to learn, you're eager to produce, and you're eager to do well. And I think that just really pushed me over the edge and really got me where I needed to be as far as a write on that level. And I kept working at it really. Ultimately, I just kept working at it. You gotta do that. And I had some opportunities too along the way, but a lot of good people, a lot of good friends, a lot of good opportunities. But ultimately I worked my butt off. So yeah.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. And much success because it was
thank you.
It's one of those things where when I've been excited for this conversation for months, and cool. Every person I've talked to, I was like, you need to watch Southside. Why don't you watch the Southside? Watch Southside.
Hey, we love that, by the way.
So in creating the show, with your brother, and it's about your hometown with people that you've encountered. So tell me about bringing it to conception, bringing the show to conception, and what sort of considerations are made when maybe writing a joke or maybe writing an episode or even the season while being wildly funny and entertaining, but also doing right by your city.
Right. That's a very good question. One of the first things that we set out when we were putting the whole project together was we wanted to make sure, and I got to give credit to my brother for this one. He says it's a love letter to the city, in a sense that we want to make sure that anybody who watches it from Chicago can appreciate the time and the energy that we put into it. But it also helps that we're from there. That's the other thing. I can't imagine being able to be this successful writing a show for LA or Atlanta or New York and not being from there. There are just so many idiosyncrasies and so many small things that are pertinent only to that city, that people from there will get it, or people from big cities will get it. So you may find the scene funny, right?
Yeah.
But someone sitting beside you who's from Chicago will find it twice as funny because of some words that we use in a setting. So you still hit all your audiences, but it's nothing like that home cooking. I think the other thing we wanted to make sure is that we were dedicated to the funny of it all, more so than anything. That was, a lot of great comedians, and Chicago is known as having a lot of comedic talent through stand-up, through whatever it is. But we wanted to make sure that it was important that if anybody else was going to come do a comedy about Chicago, they had a high bar to measure up to, and a high standard, if you will. And that was really important with us. And then so even in the, like, when we come up with some of the names and some of the places and some of the scenes, we always take into consideration, number one, what's funniest. Number two, we want to make sure we do something original that no one else has done. Because there have been several times where we were in a writing room and, great minds think alike. That is not a joke. And we would come up with concepts and someone would be like, oh, that was on this show. Oh, they did this on that show. So we would have to like completely not do it and really lean into a different direction. The benefit to that is that there are things that are unique to Chicago that aren't to other places, that really allows us to like go off into those worlds even more. More so than anything, I think one of the reasons that we went with the RTO model is because it allowed us to actually explore the city. Simply because we're not just sitting in one building and people are coming and going, because there are drop-offs and pickups and there are different elements to the show. We get to leave RTO, you get to see parts of Chicago, and you get to experience some of the people in other parts of the city. So like that for us was the perfect vehicle to not only explore the city, but get the comedy in, but show you that, I don't know if you guys have rent to own in your city. They're mostly in urban major cities. And we have one of my good friends who plays Q on the show. He actually worked for Rent-A-Center for, I want to say 16 years. And a conversation turned into a writing session, which turned into a sale to Comedy Central. And now we're here. So those are the elements that were important to us as we started and moving forward. It's really important that we continue to raise the bar. And I'll tell you, if you think season 1 of any show is hard, season 2 is harder than that. And season 3 is even harder because you got to come up with new things and new concepts that you didn't do before. You can't rely on, we're going to use the old somebody walked in the room gag. You don't get to do that. You got to actually put the time in and be funny. So that's some of the things that we take into consideration when creating the show, as well as everybody being, and I think this is a very important point, that everybody is dedicated, and I got to say this again, to the funny. Like that's the North Star. It's got to be funny.
Totally. And, one of the episodes I always tell people to check out or what have you, if they're on the fence and they're leaning, it's like, check out like Turner's and Brenda's Day Off. I was like, that's like because my brother loves like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And he's like, what is this about? And I was like, it's like 4 brothers on there. He's like, word? That's always the selling point for him. He's like, black brothers and it's funny. He's like, I'm in.
What does he think about the show? Is he like, all right? Or he's like,
no, he's a fan. He digs it.
I love it.
He's a late adopter.
What up?
Absolutely. Shout out to Rudy.
Because if you said he wasn't a fan, I'd have been like, wah, wah. But since he is, shout out to Rudy. You're in there, fam. Nice.
Absolutely. Let's talk about hobbies and side projects. Because I think like some people, they make those side missions, like they can be as good at the side missions as they are at the main thing. So tell me about any like side projects or like side like hobbies or things that take up your time outside of writing, outside of acting, that you're like, you know what, this could be my next move if I really, had that time.
Side projects that could be my next move. There aren't any, man. I'm be 100% focused. Sure. I'm super focused on, once you get into a groove in a spot like this, you want to stay there, and you want to stay there as long as you can, and you want to keep going. A lot of things that I do in my own time outside of like hiking and biking and then just working out and doing the best I can eating wise, I do a lot of creative writing. I have several projects that right now I can't move forward with because there's a project that's a priority that I'm getting paid for. So all the rest of those kind of just fall by the wayside until the next project is complete. I think, I'm of the mind state that everybody can make it to the league, but can you stay?
Yeah.
Do you have
Right.
staying power? You know, there are tons and tons of really talented writers, but do they have what it takes to go to the next level, create another show after that, do something else? So for me, that's more of my focus. I love being a creator in a sense that, like, you know, no one else, in my opinion, is going to create a show that reflects my reality
Right.
or those that are from a place that I'm from. And so it's almost like a personal responsibility to provide that and to do it in a way where it's not exploited, in a way where it's funny, in a way that it brings people in. You can actually get some feeling from behind it, and just have fun with it.
Yeah.
My passion is to do projects that I love and have fun with. If I'm not into it from the beginning, I just won't do it. Because I think the second that I'm writing for hire, if you will, it becomes a job. And I don't need a job. I need to be able to create and write stories and act and all that kind of stuff. I try to, outside of preparing for the next gig that I don't even know what it is, I don't know how it's going to come or when it's going to come.
Sure.
But I just focus and keep my skills sharp and keep writing, come up with creative projects, and just enjoy laughing. Like my day, dude, I can't. When I'm in the writing room, man, like when I go to people, it's such a blessing. When I go into the writing room, I'm pretty much laughing from the moment we start to the moment I leave. And then I get to go home and work on some more of that stuff. And then when we're shooting, I'm laughing from the moment. So like my life is full of laughter. And that's really hard to replace that with anything. Because, I'm big silly. I love laughing. I love funny.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it's a really, really good gem there. When I'm taking from it, it's like kind of like do what you're enjoying, and it's funny because like opportunities are presented and paid gigs and things of that nature, and I've been doing this podcast thing for like 13 years.
Okay,
and
congratulations to you.
Thank you. And when it turns around, that is like, oh, here's a paid opportunity and so on. It's the thing that you were identifying a second ago. And do I like this? And it's like, I kind of like talking to interesting people and being able to kind of like chop it up and maybe steal a little bit from them of like how they approach their work or how they go through the day. Because really, this is just theft. This is gentleman theft, if anything.
You're welcome, sir.
Doff to the cap to you, sir.
No problem at all. I think you hit on a really good point, man. It's about doing what you enjoy. I mean, ultimately, isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and those paid projects, you got to watch those, man. Like, I think one of the hardest things, especially for anyone new in any business that you started, because once you start getting going, all of those things are going to come. They're distractions. So then you have to choose between what your goal was or versus someone else or something else saying, hey, you want to take a little nibble of this? And that's, for me, those turn into plan Bs. And I just don't believe in plan Bs. I never had a plan B. I always go plan A all the way. And if that fails, create another plan A.
That's really a natural segue to this next question that I have, and just two more after this.
Yeah, sure.
With a show that's been on like major networks, Comedy Central, HBOMax, tell me about like the advantages and the disadvantages like of that, because I have this question in general of what are some of the benefits of being more obscure. And it's like you have less things to say no to. That's what I always will hear. So tell me about some of those advantages and disadvantages.
Let's see. Some of the disadvantages is like you got to really watch because of the culture that we live in today. And I'm just being frank right now. You got to watch what you say. You got to watch all your social media. You got to kind of look at people through a filter and make sure that they're a person of integrity and that they care about themselves. Because if they don't, then they don't care about you. Right. This is a high wire act, and a lot of people don't tell new talent that or talent that like you can't pop off the same way you used to pop off. You can't get angry at the same. You can't do some of the same things that you used to do. I also think there's another sense of responsibility as it relates to your audience. Like if I was to go out here and be a knucklehead and get myself in a bunch of trouble, which would jeopardize season 3, then the fans would be disappointed. Everybody that I work with would be disappointed. The network would be disappointed. So there are a lot of variables that a lot of things you have to really, really think about 2 and 3 and 4 times before you make that move. Also, it's just about like, it really lets you know who you are as an individual. You get to do it. I get to do a self check almost every day. Like, yo, what am I standing for? What am I about? Because especially here in LA, any of the bad things, if you will, or any habits or any of the stuff that you're into, it's out here plentiful.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to manage that and don't be your own worst enemy. I think that's really, really important, whether it's how you speak to someone, what kind of parties you go to, what you wear, to what you eat, to how you treat strangers, all of that stuff. It really, really matters, especially on this level, because the interesting thing, one of the hardest things for me to get used to is when the show first started airing. When it first aired, it was just kind of like, oh, they go the guys from Southside. But when they made the jump to HBOMax, it was like every 5 feet in certain places. And then you have to realize, like, yo, this is the life I chose. Mm-hmm. And I have to be on even when I don't feel like it. And not in a fake way, but still, like, when somebody's coming up to you to tell you that they really enjoy the show and their eyes are lit up with a smile and their face is lit up with a smile and they want to take a picture and it's with their mama and their cousin, you got to kind of be ingratiating of that. Like, oh, all right, cool. Yeah, no problem. Because ultimately that experience is going to travel to 5 other people who are going to be tuned on to the show. And ultimately that's what you want, more viewers as it relates to the show. Also, who doesn't want to be treated well? I think everybody does.
Absolutely. And
so that's where that comes from. Some of the advantages are you get considered for a lot of other opportunities. Obviously, you get into the public light. People, it's funny. People believe what they see on TV. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. People believe what they see on TV. And that's not a diss. It's just that you have to understand that sometimes when people see you on television, they really think you live that life. They really think they know you. They really think that they know things about you. So you have to remember that when you're talking to strangers, when you're meeting new celebrities, when you're at parties and stuff like that, or you're networking. That's a big thing. It's really important. You got to continue to network, which goes back to our previous question. You got to keep networking. But I think ultimately it's just, some of the advantages are a lot of, like, you get comp for things. There's a whole nother world that exists for people who, are into television, on TV and stuff like you have no idea. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, even with that, you have to, in my opinion, you just got to, all things with moderation. You can't just be out here like a pig at the sloth. You gotta just kind of be like, all right, cool, I get it. And then I think the most important thing, like we mentioned this a little bit, is like, know how to say no, man. Because a lot of people are going to want a piece of you. Everybody's going to have an opportunity. This could go from friends to families to strangers. It's okay. Just learn how to say no, because there are only so many minutes in a day, and a lot of those minutes you're sleeping. So you got to make sure that you manage your time and your energy, and just take on only what you can manage, and have a goal too. That's important. You got like, where am I going? Like, I'm not just out here. What's next? So.
Again, almost segue-ish to this final real question before we get those rapid fire ones in.
All right, cool.
So creating television, writing pitches, it's long hours, lots of work that goes in it, long days. And, as a person myself that, I might do 15 interviews in a week, and I have a day job. So it's just like, you don't have balance.
You're getting it in.
So the question I have for you is, what sorts of practices for you, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but what sorts of practices for you are regenerative?
Oh, very good question. Sleep, taking naps. Fortunately, I can take a nap throughout the day if I so choose. Hiking, biking, going to comedy shows and just sitting there listening to people do comedy. Having good conversations with other writers about projects. And quiet time. I also listen to a lot of Stoic quotes. I don't know if you ever heard of those before, but Stoic, Stoic quotes. Mm-hmm. Check those out when you get some time. There's a guy on YouTube. It's called I think it's Red Frost.
Yeah.
But he produces a bunch of Stoic quotes. I listen to those because they really help ground me and help me remember what's important, as well as continuously challenge my mind so I don't get lost in all of this. Oh, I'm doing TV. No, like that's that's great and all, but at the end of the day, people still want their rent paid. People still want they still want their money. So. Family's still there and traveling is still there and all that good stuff. So, you still got to do all those normal things in life, but that's some of the things that I do. Also listen to like, they're called Hertz. Mm-hmm. Like if you go on YouTube, there's like, Tesla's 369. I think it's 456 megahertz or something like that. But these are certain vibrations that I will meditate to for like, I don't know, 30 minutes out the day sometime, just to help with when I find myself searching for the next creative segue. Sometimes I will step away from what I'm writing and then just put on some kind of vibrational ambient music. That's really not music. It's just like tones and frequencies, if you will. I'll listen to those. And, you know, they'll help me get back to a place of, okay, what am I looking for? Because there's sometimes I have so many thoughts in my head that I can't even figure out what I want to use. So those are some things that are really, really good for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I've been taking down notes. So,
Indeed.
Shout out to you. So in these last few moments here, I got some rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
And as I give to everyone, even you, even the greatness that is you, everyone gets the preface of don't overthink it, don't overthink it, don't overthink it.
All right, cool. No doubt.
All right. We're speaking music only here for this first question. Prince or Michael Jackson?
Oh, I got to go with Michael, dog.
Okay.
He's been doing it longer. Think about it. He's been doing it since he was a kid.
Sure.
And vocally speaking, there's really no comparison. I mean, Prince is a dope artist.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Salutes to Prince, but when you're going to go verse for verse, vocal for vocal, we talking 1985 on the stage, man. With the diamond socks, moonwalking, changed the world. Are you kidding me? Prince is dope, but Michael Jackson was singing with Diana Ross when he was like, what, 6?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong here. You're right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, all right, Michael Jackson on that
one. Nickname you had when you were younger?
Oh, Speedy.
Okay.
Baseball.
If you could travel back in time, which period would you go to?
Ooh. I want to say the Mesolithic period, but I just made that word up and it's not real. So I'd like to go back to not too far because it wasn't dope.
It wasn't dope.
No, actually, I'd like to go back to like, if I could for a day, I'd go back to when settlers were coming across, the pilgrims were coming across the land, only so I can see how many Native Americans or how many indigenous, let me rephrase that, how many indigenous people, because it wasn't just Native Americans, there were many, many different cultures that were here. Just to see it from their perspective, like who are these wagons and why are they coming across and like what that lifestyle was like. Like I was really interested in seeing that for the first time. Like, what? So yeah.
Yeah, get the grandness or the ungrandness of what was happening,
like,
the scope.
What's going on here? Something's new coming, guys. So.
And here's the last one. This one might be the most controversial one, but who knows?
Okay.
Underappreciated Chicago food.
Ooh. Pizza? I mean, pizza, dude. A lot of people, especially people from New York, they're like, nah, that ain't no pizza. I'm like, yo, your thin slices and your corner delis, that's great. That's great. I can completely appreciate that. But if you haven't had deep dish in Chicago, the deep dish pizza. Also, another place, Doc's Fish.
Okay.
Ooh, Doc's Fish. When you go to Chicago, go to 35th, right off of King Drive, and go to Doc's and get you a fish wish, a number one fish wish. Oh my God, I can taste it right now. I'm salivating. Yeah, it's delicious. So fish sandwiches.
I will say that I was late. I was nearly late for a flight because me and one of my buddies that went to this wrestling show I referred to earlier popped over because we didn't get any deep dish. We got some. We stuffed it down our gullets and then ran for the flight. And I was like, this was a mistake, but this was delicious. It was a delicious mistake. The order was the issue more than the actual food.
Do you remember what restaurant you got the pizza from?
It was close to the airport. That's all I can really think of. Yeah.
Was it Midway or O'Hare?
This was O'Hare.
Okay, yeah. I don't know which one that could have been, but yeah, cool. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people like try to hate on our pizza, but they know it's the best. Come on.
Then you go to Portillo's.
Portillo's. Oh my God, really good. Have you had their chocolate shake, chocolate cake shake?
No.
Dude, they take a piece of chocolate cake big ass piece, throw it in the blender, put it with some ice cream, and turn it into a shake for you. And then you wake up with diabetes. But it's so good, though. It's worth it.
So with that, I want to thank you for being on this podcast, indulging me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Mr. Rob Lee.
And I want to invite and encourage you to tell the fine folks, one, to obviously watch Southside, but tell the fine folks, the floor is yours. Any message you want to share with the fine folks as we wrap up here?
I think it's important that everybody listen to their heart and do what makes them most happy. Also, really quickly, I have a nonprofit organization called lane44.org, and the whole purpose of that nonprofit is to provide the youth of Chicago an opportunity to work in the film industry behind the camera and get some experience there in the neighborhood. So we make films in the community. And then outside of that, I wish everybody health and wellness, and to take care of yourself and make yourself a priority.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Sultan Salahuddin from HBOMax's Southside for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there is culture in and around your neck of the woods. You just got to look for it.